All right, welcome back to another Embrace Destiny live stream, everyone, or video if you happen to be watching this over on YouTube later. Kaz PhD reporting in from the moon today. And yeah, today's going to be another update about what's happening in space and talking a little bit about Destiny. So, a little context here in terms of Destiny. I'm currently playing as my hunter, which is why I have this pretty little cape on. I don't usually play as anything other than my Titan, but I'm trying to work my way through some quests and things in Destiny. We're on the moon today because we're actually talking about some upcoming moon missions, some actual announcements from different real space agencies in the world today, and looks like there's going to be a race back to the moon. A slow, possibly involved race. We'll see how this goes. So what am I talking about? Well, the first thing is China has been setting their sights on the moon for a couple of years now, and they recently made an announcement concerning some missions that they were going to do. So you may remember the U2, not YouTube, U2 mission, otherwise known as the Rabbit. Basically, a couple of years ago, China successfully sent a rover to the surface of the moon, and they, it was very cute. It had a lot of imagery and took some promotional images and things like this, and it was really just to kind of prove to China and show the rest of the world that that country was ready and able to get to the moon, to land on it, and to do some science there. So they announced. If you haven't been following it at all, which I kind of presume you haven't, because China's been very quiet about most things. But they are seriously setting their sights on space. They have... ooh, this is going to hurt. Him, not me. I'm fine. So, yeah, China has been really setting their sights on space lately. They have... For years, they've had a developmental kind of like an international space station, but more of a national space station called the Tiangong. You can check that out on Wikipedia if you so desire. Basically, they've had a test space station, a miniaturized version that they've used to kind of test their engineering and their designs, and they've announced plans to send astronauts up to, or taikonauts, up to that station in the next... Well, I believe they've actually had astronauts dock with it recently. But more specifically, we were talking about heading back to the moon. So China has announced that they are, as part of their ongoing space endeavors, they actually want to send a robotic rover to the moon. Why is this important or special? Well, they don't want to just send a rover to the moon. They actually want to send... They want to send it there, collect some samples, some of this moon dust I'm looking at right now, and bring it back. This is pretty exciting stuff. It may not sound like it as I describe it in my, polished tones here, but getting to the moon is still quite difficult. I mean, we have orbiters and things, but we haven't returned a sample from the moon since 1976, and by we, I of course mean the Soviet Union. Their Luna 4 mission, I believe it was called. So China is looking to develop a... It's a big deal because they have a lot of different technology hurdles that they have to get over. I mean, yes, they've already shown that they can launch and land on the moon, but they are sending an orbiter, a lander, an ascent vehicle, and a rover. So think about that. Think about the last time you tried to organize a trip to go anywhere, and think about how wrong it went very fast. Now think about trying to do that if you had to coordinate between 4 or 5 different vehicles. You took a plane to catch a bus to catch a train. Well, they have to launch a rocket into geosynchronous orbit, Well, first they have to launch into a transfer orbit. Then they have to shift to a geosynchronous orbit. Then they have to switch to a lunar reconnaissance orbit, basically the same one that the Apollo missions took. Their orbiter goes around the moon while their lander obviously lands, and the rover then has to use a drill. They have a couple of different instruments on it, including a panoramic camera, including a seismometer, and they have some drilling equipment that's supposed to go 2 meters down into the surface of the moon. Then they have to rise off the surface, bring it back, and continue analyzing. So this is really important, not only because it would be a great achievement for the country, and some good update on the science if we ever get any of the results, because China's a little quiet about that sort of thing. But it would also show another country developing the capability to go to the moon and return. So this is a recurring theme you might hear on this channel a couple of times, but basically I'm a little tired of missions that go somewhere, do something once, and then never do that again. The Apollo missions to the moon were great, but the fact that we haven't sent a man into deep space since 1972 annoys me a little bit. So, if they're able to develop this technology with their robotics, then that would be a great benefit to the entire space industry, I think. Not to be outdone or lag too far behind, India, the Indian Space Research Organization, known as ISRO, are also looking to go to the moon. So, you may not know, but they launched an orbiter to the moon in 2008. It worked for a year, collecting imagery and things like this. Just missed that. There we go. And it's called the Chandrayaan, and they're looking to send another mission there in 2018. Contrary to the return mission that the Chinese are setting up, the Indian mission will collect samples on the moon and analyze them there, sending the data and the telemetry back to Earth. So we're looking at two countries working independently on sending equipment to the moon, and in one case returning them. Why am I talking about this? Why is this important? Well, as I just said, it would show further capabilities in developing an actual industry for the moon. So as you hold on, there you go. So, as I said before, a lot of space endeavors, unless they're involved orbiting the Earth and looking at the Earth, a lot of space endeavors happen. Maybe they happen for a long time, like the Cassini probe that's circulating Saturn for the past decade. But a lot of times they go, they do their mission, and they quit. And research funding in the scientific community is difficult enough to get. And it's difficult when the public thinks, well, we don't need to go back there. We've been there before. And that's what happened with the moon. That's exactly what happened with the moon missions. Everybody was incredibly excited, especially in the United States and the Soviet Union, for getting a person to the moon. And as soon as they did so, popularity and interest in the moon missions dropped off immediately. I mean, think about the excitement that the United States had for sending someone to the moon in 1968, 1969. And their last mission to the moon was in 1972. And now people have been talking about pushing to Mars. So, I personally believe that these missions, the Chinese one, the Indian one, as well as maybe things like the Google Lunar X Prize, which is promoting commercial endeavors to actually return to the moon, I believe that this will be good for the entire industry. It will promote... It will promote competition, it will promote technological advancement, and I believe it will help make a more sustainable space industry. But it does run into some problems that I'm not sure either of the countries I mentioned are even willing to consider at this point. Along with the sample return mission and collecting imagery and things like this that India and China are doing, they want to. China wants to collect samples, and India wants to. India wants to strip the moon of certain materials in order to basically provide an energy resource to their country. However, there is a treaty. There is an international treaty called the International Treaty for the. Was it the International Treaty for the proper use of, it's basically called the Outer Space Treaty, 1967. Many countries signed it, stating that one of the things that they stated was that they would not utilize, they would not commercially exploit space, at least assets in space. So we're talking about, they strictly said that they would not go to places like the moon and start selling land or buying or selling material from the land. So how does this get around? How is India able to do this? Well, I mean, the first step is the treaty was made in 1967, so it is definitely in need of being reevaluated and updated. But also, there's some endeavors in both the United States and where is it? Luxembourg right now to actually change part of the treaty to allow people to do things like mining from the moon. So the United States released what they called the United States Space Act, and Luxembourg followed quite quickly with their act a year later. And in both of them, they express a desire and an interest to actually exploit materials from the from asteroids and from the moon and such like this. So let me just go over here. Take a look. So as I said, there's a lot of different people that are looking at... Hold on. Oh my God. Just trying to move out of the way of these people here. There's a lot of people that are interested in making better commercial use of outer space. Right now, there's a lot of commercial endeavors that include things like satellite communications, internet, phone, TV, stuff like that, as well as the business of taking imagery, from space and selling it for various purposes, government, military, agriculture, things like this. But in terms of money to be made past the Earth itself, that's still a new game, and that's one that hasn't really been established yet. China wants to go to the moon and return back with samples so that they can further science and exploration. India wants to go there so that they can actually mine the moon of material and, supplement their own energy reserves. Can they do that? Well, legally, we just talked about that. They would have to overcome some of the Outer Space Treaty articles, and they would have to probably have, in the end, they could probably do whatever they wanted, because while it is internationally illegal, we've all kind of seen how effective the UN can be at stopping countries that wish to do something. Pro tip, it's not very effective. Economic sanctions and such as this. But is it viable in terms of would they actually be able to acquire something? What is on the moon? I mean, everything in this Destiny video here, it's all gray and dust. Could they actually acquire something? Well, I wrote an article which I will put in the description below on my YouTube video, and you can check it out, and it discusses what the moon is actually made of. One of the important elements, the only one that India is really interested in, is an element known as helium-3. It's an isotope of helium, which is created by solar wind. So basically, the sun hits the soil here, the regolith, as we call it, of the moon, and in that process deposits helium-3 elements, but very, very minute quantities. We're talking like 50 particles for every billion particles of moon dust is helium-3. So, is there something on the moon that they could exploit? Technically, yes, but the jury is still out as to whether or not it's going to make any economic sense. I mean, space is getting easier, but space is still difficult. So you think strip mining somewhere in in North America is difficult. Try imagining sending a rover to the moon, and then that rover is expected to. Rover is sent to the moon. It has to strip materials from the lunar surface, and then it has to return those all of that material back to Earth. And it's not like it's just sitting on a gold mine. I mean, for every billion kilograms of lunar dust that they excavate, they're only going to get 50 kilograms of helium-3, which helium-3 I expect is a pretty expensive substance considering it's rare and it's used in nuclear-powered engines. But it's still a massive undertaking that has yet to show any kind of financial promise. But the fact that many countries are trying to push toward asteroid mining, moon mining, it's a positive in my opinion. It shows that the industry is looking to develop a commercial, sustainable aspect of the space industry. So not just go there once, never go there again, but go there, set up something, and continue the business. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll end up getting something like this someday. Maybe in the game of Destiny, all of this moon base that you've been seeing me fly around for the last half hour, or 16 minutes at this point, it's all established by the Chinese, as you can see here, the first light lunar installation. It's not exactly clear what they were doing here, whether they were purely scientific curiosity or if they were trying to expand. Destiny has this weird history that A is hidden in grimoire cards, B is hidden in the mystery of the game. But I find it interesting that the moon in Destiny has this colony. It's very small. It's the largest thing that we've ever had. We don't have an actual moon colony, obviously, but it's still quite small in scale and size, considering the moon is our closest planetary neighbor. Were the Chinese coming here to expand? Were they coming here to just simply mine the grounds of material? It's hard to say. Why they didn't come back is probably due to the fact that one of the main alien races in the game, the Hive, well, they were the ones responsible. Can I see it? For that over there, that giant crater? Yeah, that's caused by an alien race that drilled into the moon. So, but it's interesting. Like I said, we're seeing some developments out there. Anyway, I've kind of been rambling for a little while. Let me just wrap this up for you. China's looking to go to the moon later this year, collect some samples and return it. India is looking to go to the moon in 2018 just to analyze some lunar material, but they are also planning on perhaps mining the moon for helium-3 material in 2030, I believe. For a better understanding of what the moon is actually made of and what they could possibly obtained from this experience, feel free to check out my my article that I wrote. It'll be in the description, as I said. And yeah, until then, I'll be out here pushing back the darkness, fighting the Fallen, the Hive, and whatever else comes my way. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this today. And yeah, feel free to leave any comments or anything you'd like me to explore in future videos. The world and the business of space are definitely full of interesting stories, so I look forward to bringing you more in the weeks ahead. Thank you very much for watching. Bye now.